Some machines earn respect the hard way, not through marketing, not through luxury badges, but through sheer relentless survival. You see them in the background of life. Faded paint, stubborn engines, still running decades after their designers ever expected them to. They're the kind of cars that outlast trends, outlive their owner's patience, and somehow find new life in the hands of people who refuse to let them die. Each creak, each scratch, tells a story of over-engineering meeting human determination. There's beauty in that. Because when something keeps going long after it should have stopped, it becomes more than a machine. It becomes a testament to how well something can be made when durability mattered more than profit margins. Today, we're diving into one of those legends. A car that proved you could build forever if you really wanted to. Stick around, hit like and subscribe, and drop a comment on which timeless workhorse you want us to cover next. The Mercedes W124 was never meant to be flashy. It was meant to be correct. Introduced in 1984 and sold through the mid-1990s, it was the car that defined Mercedes-Benz's golden era of over-engineering. The W124 wasn't built to chase trends or conquer rivals. It was built to outlast them. Engineers at Stuttgart didn't talk about planned obsolescence. They talked about precision tolerances, metallurgy, and longevity curves measured in decades, not years. The project began in the early 1980s under the shadow of rising costs and tighter emission standards. Mercedes was trying to build the successor to the beloved W123, a sedan that had already earned a reputation for bulletproof reliability. The challenge was to create something more efficient and aerodynamic without sacrificing the bank vault solidity that defined the brand. So they rethought everything. The W124 introduced computer-aided design for better aerodynamics. Its drag coefficient dropped to 0.29, an astonishing figure for a mid-size sedan of its time. The body shell was reinforced yet lighter. The suspension featured multi-link rear geometry that balanced comfort and control, and the engines ranged from unburstable diesels to smooth inline sixes. Every bolt and hinge felt engineered for eternity. Even the door handles, chunky, mechanical, satisfying, were built to operate flawlessly for hundreds of thousands of cycles. In its time, the W124 wasn't just another German sedan. It was a statement of intent. Mercedes engineers called it the most advanced car they had ever built. It carried the weight of the brand's reputation and a promise to deliver a decade of ownership without a single rattle. Buyers believed it. They paid handsomely for that confidence, often choosing the W124 over more powerful or luxurious alternatives simply because they trusted it to never let them down. In the United States, the car arrived as the 300e, and soon after as the 260e, 400e, and later the E-Class naming convention. American buyers admired its subdued design, the crisp body lines, the upright grille, and the honest lack of flash. It was the antithesis of the excess that defined the 1980s luxury scene. While others flaunted chrome and digital dashboards, the W124 delivered quiet competence. Its engineers weren't chasing applause, they were chasing perfection. Inside, the cabin reflected the same philosophy. Real wood trim, thick leather, logical switchgear, all executed with a clarity that's almost alien today. Nothing felt accidental. The seats were firm yet supportive, the visibility near perfect, and the controls had a mechanical precision that modern cars try to imitate with fake resistance and artificial feedback. Maintenance manuals read like manifestos for longevity. Fluids, filters, torque specs, all designed for ease of service rather than sealed mystery. This was a car meant to be maintained by humans, not computers. But that devotion to quality came at a cost. The W124 was expensive to produce, far more than its sticker price justified. Each component was designed to outlive its warranty by multiples, and that kind of engineering erodes profit margins fast. Executives reportedly warned that Mercedes couldn't keep building cars like this forever. It was unsustainable in a market increasingly driven by cost optimization, and yet, the W124 became a hit. Owners swore by its composure, its indifference to abuse, its ability to shrug off age. Taxi fleets across Europe racked up 500,000 miles on original drivetrains. In the US, it became the understated choice of doctors, professors, and engineers, the kind of people who read spec sheets for fun and valued logic over flash. When the wagon and coupe variants joined the lineup, the family expanded into near perfection. The 300TE wagon with its self-leveling suspension could haul a refrigerator one day and cross a continent the next without complaint. Even the convertibles, rare, elegant, hand-built, carried the same DNA of precision. There was no weak link in the lineup, yet beneath the calm exterior, the automotive world was changing fast. Competitors were introducing more electronics, more luxury, more style. The W124 stood apart, solid but conservative. Its restraint made it timeless but also signaled the end of an era when engineers, not accountants, made the final call. The W124's story isn't just about how it was built, it's about the values that created it. Durability over novelty, function over form, integrity over impression. It was a car born from a philosophy that believed a product should earn your trust, not demand your loyalty through marketing. That's why so many of these sedans still run today, decades later, owned by people who were either too young to drive when they were new or nostalgic for a time when made to last meant something. And it's those very qualities that transformed the W124 from just another Mercedes into a legend of mechanical endurance. It set a standard so high that even the company that built it couldn't sustain it for long. In the next part, we'll see how that perfection met the real world, competition, market shifts, and the unexpected rise of a cult following that refused to let the W124 fade away. The Mercedes W124 entered the global market with quiet confidence and then proved impossible to ignore. By the late 1980s, the car had carved a reputation as unbreakable transportation for anyone who valued precision over flash. But once the W124 hit the streets and highways of Europe, Asia, and North America, it faced a new test: real-world expectations. Buyers loved its solidity, but the world around it was changing fast. Japan was flooding the luxury market with affordable reliability. America was obsessed with power and status symbols, and Europe was tightening emissions rules. Against that backdrop, the W124 had to prove that uncompromising engineering still had a place in a market chasing convenience. From the moment the Mercedes W124 debuted, reviews praised its composure and build quality, yet some critics wondered whether its restraint bordered on arrogance. There was nothing flashy about its presence. No radical styling, no ostentatious tech. But the more miles owners drove, the more the car's genius became clear. Road tests revealed how perfectly balanced its chassis was, with the multi-link rear suspension keeping the tires planted even on rough pavement. In an era when ABS and traction control were still novelties, the W124's poise gave drivers a sense of security that bordered on reverence. Then came the enthusiasts. Tuners from Germany to California realized that beneath the sedan's conservative lines lay a platform begging for modification. AMG, then still an independent tuning firm, saw potential too. Before Mercedes officially acquired AMG, the W124 became the base for one of the most outrageous sedans of its time, the 500e. Built in collaboration with Porsche, the 500e stuffed a 5.0-liter V8 under the hood and transformed the understated executive car into a stealth missile. Its widened stance and blistered fenders were subtle to the untrained eye, but anyone who knew understood it was something special. Every 500e was hand-assembled in a process so complex that bodies were shipped back and forth between Mercedes and Porsche factories. It was slow, expensive, and magnificent. The 500e wasn't about bragging rights. It was about pushing the W124's potential to its limit. In doing so, it cemented the car's dual identity: reliable workhorse and engineering icon. Meanwhile, in Europe, the diesel versions were becoming legends of their own. The 200D and 300D were the backbone of taxi fleets across the continent. Stories of cars surpassing 1 million kilometers without a rebuild weren't marketing myths. They were daily occurrences. Mechanics marveled at the simplicity and accessibility of the engines. Owners loved that everything still felt tight after decades of use. No matter how many times they were repainted, reupholstered, or resold, these cars just wouldn't quit. In the US, however, the W124 had a different kind of appeal. It was less about longevity and more about identity. Driving a 300e in the late 80s told the world you valued refinement over flash. It was a car for people who didn't need to prove anything. As Japanese automakers began to rise with the Lexus LS400 and Infiniti Q45, Mercedes found itself at a crossroads. The W124 was better built, but it was also more expensive and slower to adapt. Luxury was shifting from craftsmanship to technology, so Mercedes began adding features like early traction control systems, automatic climate control, and improved sound insulation. Even then, the W124 felt timeless. Owners who could afford to replace it often didn't want to. As the years passed, the W124 became a symbol of what Mercedes once stood for: unflinching engineering integrity. But it also marked a turning point. The cost of building such a car was too high for the economics of the 90s. Newer models, the W210, for instance, were built under stricter cost controls, with more electronics and less over-engineering. To enthusiasts, that shift felt like the end of something sacred. And that's where the cult following began. On internet forums, garages, and YouTube channels decades later, the W124 found a second life. DIY mechanics discovered that these cars were not only durable, but also surprisingly forgiving to work on. A head gasket replacement might take a weekend, but it wasn't impossible. A suspension rebuild required patience, not a factory computer. In an age of sealed ECUs and proprietary tools, the W124 was refreshingly analog. That independence resonated deeply with a generation tired of disposable technology. They saw the W124 not as an old luxury car, but as a template for how good design can transcend obsolescence. Even in motorsport, the W124 left a quiet legacy. While it was never a dedicated race car, its platform served as a base for touring car builds and endurance events, further proof of its resilience under stress. The same qualities that made it a great commuter, stability, predictability, mechanical precision, made it a joy for amateur racers. And for tuners, it was a blank canvas. Swap in modern power plants, tweak the suspension, and you had a sleeper capable of embarrassing newer, more expensive machines. The W124's reach extended far beyond Germany. In Africa, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East, it became a cornerstone of mobility: taxi, family car, and status symbol all in one. These markets proved what the engineers in Stuttgart already knew: longevity is its own form of luxury. The car didn't just outlive its peers, it outlived the economic models that made it possible. By the late 1990s, when production finally wound down, the W124 had already transcended its original purpose. It wasn't just a car, it was a reference point. Mechanics used it to define what a real Mercedes felt like. Owners used it to benchmark reliability. Even rival manufacturers quietly studied it, trying to replicate its balance of refinement and resilience. But as the years passed, a question lingered. How did a car built with such meticulous care survive long enough to become a symbol for modern-day tinkerers and collectors? That's what we'll explore next: the unexpected legacy of the Mercedes W124, and how it became not just a machine, but a philosophy on wheels. The Mercedes W124 didn't fade quietly into nostalgia, it evolved into legend. Decades after its debut, this car remains a touchstone for anyone who believes that quality can be engineered, not advertised. To understand its legacy, we have to see what happened after the showroom lights dimmed and the warranties expired. When the Mercedes W124 first rolled off the line, it represented a pinnacle of precision. Today, those same principles have made it a survivor in a world obsessed with disposability. For thousands of enthusiasts, restoring or daily driving a W124 isn't just about owning an old Mercedes. It's about owning an idea. The idea that something built with integrity can outlast every shortcut that came after. The W124 became a blueprint for longevity, a masterclass in how design discipline can outshine digital novelty. Its suspension geometry, overbuilt driveline, and mechanical simplicity made it a benchmark that modern cars quietly measure themselves against. Even the sound of its doors closing, a heavy, confident thunk, became a shorthand for quality. But what's most remarkable isn't just how the W124 was built. It's how it's lived. Across continents, these cars have outlasted the economic systems that created them. In Africa and the Middle East, fleets of W124 taxis still run daily, often with more than 500,000 miles behind them. In Europe, enthusiasts restore them as living artifacts of an era when engineering trumped marketing. And in America, they've become cult classics for those who prefer mechanical honesty over digital dependence. The Mercedes W124 bridges generations. Older owners who bought them new speak of their composure and dependability. Younger enthusiasts see them as mechanical mentors, teaching lessons about patience, craftsmanship, and permanence. In a world of software updates and short product cycles, the W124's analog durability feels almost rebellious. Its continued relevance lies in what it rejects, the notion that progress always means complexity. But that doesn't mean the W124 is perfect. Time has exposed its quirks. Electrical gremlins in aging wiring harnesses, expensive hydraulic systems on the wagons, rust in northern climates, and the occasional overconfidence of owners who believe built like a tank means indestructible. Yet those flaws only deepen its character, because every part that wears out is replaceable, and every repair adds another chapter to a car's story. It's this repairability that keeps the W124 alive long after newer cars are scrapped. You can rebuild one in a home garage with patience and the right manuals, no dealership software required. That accessibility has made it the darling of DIY mechanics worldwide. Forums, restoration channels, and meetups have turned the W124 community into a living classroom for mechanical literacy. The car itself is a teacher. Take care of it, and it will teach you how to care for anything else mechanical. Even as technology has evolved, the lessons from the Mercedes W124 continue to influence modern design thinking. Engineers study its durability curves and material choices. Enthusiasts quote its design ethos, simplicity, serviceability, strength as a lost art. And Mercedes itself, though now focused on electric mobility and digital integration, still references the W124 when speaking about core brand values. The DNA remains. But the emotional connection, the one forged through decades of dependability, belongs to the owners who kept these cars alive. For them, the W124 isn't nostalgia. It's proof that real craftsmanship doesn't age. The way the suspension smooths rough roads, the reassuring idle of the inline six, the effortless way it tracks straight at highway speeds, all of it feels timeless. The W124 transcends its era because it speaks a universal mechanical language. Make it right, and it will serve. What began as a precision tool for German executives and professionals has become an everyman's classic, bridging social and cultural boundaries through reliability. It's not rare because few were built. It's rare because few cars last this long without losing their soul. Collectors now recognize that value. Clean, low-mileage examples command prices once unthinkable for an old sedan. But even the scruffiest ones have worth beyond money. Each W124 that still runs is an act of defiance, a reminder that durability isn't outdated, it's just undervalued. So why does the Mercedes W124 matter today? Because it represents a kind of automotive honesty that's hard to find. It's proof that good engineering never goes out of style. In an age of planned obsolescence and subscription-based everything, a 30-year-old car that still starts every morning feels like rebellion in motion. And that's what makes the W124 more than a vehicle. It's a philosophy rolling on four wheels. In the final part, we'll bring it home what owning or buying a W124 in today's US market really means: costs, quirks, reliability truths, and why this old Benz might just outlast your next new car. Owning a Mercedes W124 in the United States today is less about nostalgia and more about intent. This isn't a collector's gamble, it's a statement. The Mercedes W124 represents the high-water mark of mechanical integrity, and living with one in modern America means joining a quiet rebellion against disposability. For those curious about taking the plunge, reality starts with cost. Prices swing wildly depending on condition. A rough daily driver might fetch a few $1,000s, while pristine, low-mileage examples, especially the 500e or clean wagons, can soar well beyond $30,000 or $40,000. But money is only part of the calculation. The true currency is patience. The W124 rewards care and punishes neglect. Its part supply remains strong, but quality varies. OEM components keep the experience pure, while cheap replacements undermine what made the car special in the first place. The good news? A mechanically sound W124 can still be maintained by anyone with a garage, a toolkit, and time. Labor costs drop dramatically if you're willing to learn. And the reward for that effort is a machine that feels carved from purpose. Solid, confident, ageless. The Mercedes W124 may sip fuel modestly by 80s standards, but don't expect hybrid efficiency. What it delivers instead is mechanical transparency. You feel every gear shift, hear the rhythm of a healthy engine, and sense how perfectly balanced the chassis remains after decades of use. Few cars this old inspire daily driver confidence, but a sorted W124 does exactly that. Its reliability isn't magic, it's mechanical truth. Keep fluids clean, address wear items promptly, and it simply goes. Rust is the enemy, particularly in northern climates, so a rust-free shell is worth more than fancy options. And if you find a diesel, embrace the slow lane. It'll probably outlast the highway itself. The cultural value of the W124 continues to grow too. Younger enthusiasts see it as a mechanical canvas. Modern engine swaps, subtle suspension upgrades, and factory-correct restorations coexist peacefully in the same community. Each build tells a story about how the car bridges eras, analog roots with modern touches. And because the platform was sold globally, knowledge is abundant. Forums, video guides, and parts catalogs make ownership surprisingly accessible. In short, the W124 has become a democratic classic. It doesn't demand pedigree or privilege, just respect. For American drivers, it's also a reminder of how different car culture once was. This was a time when buying a sedan wasn't about touchscreen size or app compatibility. It was about how it felt on a cold start or a long drive. The Mercedes W124 captures that experience perfectly. The tactile switchgear, the soft thunk of closing doors, the absence of distraction. Everything you need, nothing you don't. In a landscape where most cars are designed for a 3-year lease and a 5-year lifespan, the W124 stands as proof that engineering with integrity can outlive entire business models. It's not rare because it's old. It's rare because it still works. So should you buy one? If you value connection over convenience, absolutely. It's not a weekend toy. It's a commitment to mechanical honesty. Treat it well, and it will repay you with years of reliability and the quiet satisfaction of driving something built with care, not compromise. The Mercedes W124 isn't just a car, it's a conversation with time. Every mile you drive whispers a simple truth. Things built to last. That's its real legacy, and that's why, even decades later, the W124 refuses to die.